we're happy to be joined now by Ahmed Alnaouq, co-founder and director of We Are Not Numbers. He hosts a podcast with Palestine Deep Dive, and he is advocacy director for the Euromed Human Rights Monitor. He has a master's degree in international journalism from Leeds University, and Ahmed's writings have been widely published. Many viewers will remember that we last spoke to Ahmed on October 30th, soon after the first anniversary of Israel's massacre of 21 members of his family. And I want to name them, as we did on that day. Israel's bombing of Ahmed's family home killed his father, Nasri Alnaouq, who was 75, his sister Wala and her children Raghd, Islam, and Sarah, and Abdullah, who was just 6 years old, Ahmed's brother Muhammad, with his children Bakr and Basima, his sister Ala and her children Islam, Dima, Tala, and Noor, and Nesma, and who was the youngest at just 2, his sister Aya and her children Malak Bashir, Muhammad Bashir, and Tamim Bashir. The Israeli attack also killed Ahmed's brother Mahmoud Alnaouq, who was 25 years old, and a cousin Ali Al-Qurinwi, who was 35. They are among the tens of thousands of Palestinians murdered in this genocide, which, as we speak, has not yet ended. But for the first time in more than 15 months, the ceasefire, set to take effect on Sunday, offers an end in sight to the massacres and bloodshed. Ahmed, thank you for joining us today.
Thank you very much, Ali, for having me.
Ahmed, these days and hours must be filled with a lot of emotions. What is your reaction to the news of the ceasefire agreement?
A lot of emotions, Ali. Yesterday I was pinched to the TV watching the news day and night, waiting for this moment where they announce that they have finally agreed to a ceasefire. And I couldn't believe it, to be honest. I thought for the past 15 months, I thought that this moment will not come. I thought that Israel is determined, and I know Israel was determined to ethnically cleanse the Palestinians from Gaza, to destroy Gaza, to kill and inflict so much damage and suffering on the Palestinian people, and take Gaza, build settlements. I thought this is going to happen. But then when suddenly I heard that a ceasefire deal has achieved, and Israel will withdraw from Gaza. And more than that, Palestinian prisoners will be released, and Israel did not defeat the Palestinian people, and Israel did not defeat the resistance, and the Palestinians are still in their homes, and they are still in the Gaza Strip. I was in a state of disbelief, and I thought in my heart, Gaza has won. We, the Palestinians, have won. And Israel is defeated miserably. And Ali, I'm not someone who's far removed from reality. Some people will say, oh my God, this is over-enthusiastic Palestinian who lives in London, far away from Gaza. But no, I lived in Gaza all my life. I've endured the siege in Gaza. I've endured many wars in Gaza, and I've lost everyone I care about in Gaza. As you have said, I lost the vast majority of my family members. I've lost my home. The home that I built with my hands and the home that I invested all my savings in. I've lost everything in Gaza, and I have been under pain here in the UK for the past 15 months under smear campaigns and all of that. So I'm not far from reality. I know exactly what happened in Gaza. I know there was the worst live stream genocide in history was carried out against the people in Gaza. I know that 90% of the people in Gaza are displaced right now in Gaza. I know that, and I have watched a lot of footage and videos coming from Gaza of people, of civilians being decapitated, of children shredded apart, of houses destroyed, of entire neighborhoods destroyed, of hospitals, of schools, of universities that I went to. I've seen them being destroyed. And I know all of that. I know it's very painful. I know the suffering is immense. But I know the Palestinian people are under a huge horror and terrorism. They're under terrorism. Israel is a terrorist state that is practicing terrorism against the Palestinian people. But despite all these odds, despite all of what's happened, Gaza have emerged victorious. Do you know why? Because Gaza was not defeated. And this is the thing about us Palestinians, not only about us Palestinians, about all of those people who are living under occupation, who are living under occupation, we can never be defeated unless we feel that we are defeated, and the Palestinian people will never be defeated. We will never have our spirits defeated and broken. We, the Palestinian people in Gaza, after 15 months of genocide, of the worst genocide, live stream genocide in history, we emerge victorious after 15 months of this horror. This is how I feel. I feel elevated, and I understand. Maybe some people would say that we shouldn't be celebrating because there are a lot of families who were slaughtered, a lot of people who were killed in Gaza. The Gazans are still under genocide until this moment. But I do not celebrate the death of the Palestinians. I celebrate the end of the death for other Palestinians.
Yeah.
And of course, I mean, the reality is that Israel, and it's not just Israel, it's the United States and the entire West, the most powerful empire in history, through everything they had, without mercy, without red lines, without limits, without any humanity, at a tiny besieged piece of territory, and they couldn't conquer it. And they couldn't break the spirit of the people. We saw only a small taste of that in the videos we saw in the news of people saying that they're determined to rebuild and they're determined to stay. And it's not that we want to romanticize people, but we want to respect what they're saying and what they went through. And they didn't go through it to say at the end of it that we were defeated, when it was Israel that, Netanyahu, before the Congress, the US Congress in June, said we won't accept less than total victory. And total victory meant Hamas is disarmed and destroyed, and the hostages or captives are released unconditionally, and we control Gaza. And they achieved none of that. So how can that be considered anything other than a defeat for Israel?
Israel did not achieve any of its objectives, except for one objective, which is inflict as much suffering as possible on the people in Gaza. And I believe Israel achieved this objective. They have inflicted a lot of suffering on the Palestinian people. But in the process of achieving this objective, they have made of themselves a rogue state, a pariah state. Now the world, all the world knows about what happened in Gaza. Thanks to the journalists in Gaza, everyone knows exactly what happened to Gaza. And Ali, what we have seen in Gaza, what the world has seen in Gaza, the footage, the screams, the testimony, the stories that came from Gaza, these things that the world will never forget. These, what the world has seen, they will never be able to unsee that. They will never unhear what they have heard during this genocide. And it came at an opposite effect for the Israelis. The Israelis have not won. They did not win, and they will not win. And by the way, Ali, it's not only the US that fought the Palestinians in Gaza, it's the whole world. We stood against the whole world, against the American empire, the British empire, the Western, the Eastern. Everyone was collaborating against Gaza. Everyone was participating in this genocide against Gaza. The banks, the mainstream media played a role in uncovering the truth about Gaza. We have fought against all of that, and then the Palestinian people are not defeated. And because we are not defeated, we have won.
Ahmed, the focus right now is understandably on the immediate relief for people in Gaza. That a ceasefire and the promised surge of humanitarian deliveries will bring. Are you already thinking about the future of Gaza and what that will look like?
Well, I will not romanticize the future about Gaza. I know that Gaza will not be a paradise just after the genocide ends. I know that the people in Gaza will still continue to struggle and suffer for many years to come. It will not be easy to rebuild Gaza. It will not be easy to feed the people in Gaza right now. It will be a very daunting and very difficult task. But what I care about now the most is the end of the bloodshed of the Palestinian people. And then the Palestinians can survive. We will survive. We need right now to end the genocide, and hopefully on Sunday, the genocide will end. And then, according to the ceasefire deal, Israel will allow 600 trucks per day to enter Gaza. And I think that will be sufficient. It will not be enough to rebuild Gaza, but I think it will be sufficient to aid the starving people, the population in the Gaza Strip. And I believe that will starting from Sunday. So I'm hopeful that finally the starvation of the Palestinian people will end. Finally, people will have at least tents or caravans to stay in until there is a reconstruction of Gaza. But until there is a reconstruction of Gaza, and I know that this will take many, many years, the attention for Gaza should not dwindle. The attention and the media attention for the people in Gaza should only grow stronger, because the people in Gaza right now, they still need the people. They still need you. All of the activists, all of the media, all of the attention has to stay on Gaza right now until the situation is a little better. And by the way, I have to say that this is not the end of the war between the Israelis and the Palestinians, between Israel and the Palestinian people. We are still at the beginning. There will never be everlasting peace until there is a free Palestine, until the apartheid regime is dismantled, until the occupation is lifted. So for that, I think the support for the Palestinian people should not stop right now. It should intensify so that we do not see other genocides in the future.
Ahmed, you live in the UK, and you may or may not want to comment on specific statements this or that politician has said, but there's been a lot of comment about the statement from Keir Starmer, the British Prime Minister, today, which on the ceasefire, which mentioned the suffering and the massacres and the atrocities against Israelis, but barely acknowledged the Palestinian people and what they've been through, and didn't name who did it to them. What's your sense of being in the UK in terms of the gulf between what we hear from governments and what we hear from ordinary people? And what have you seen change over the past 15 months? You talked about, yes, the world has watched these horrors and it will never be the same, but just talk about what you've experienced in the UK over the last 15 months.
It's not surprising that Keir Starmer made this statement. At the beginning of the genocide, Keir Starmer said that they stand with Israel, that the UK stands with Israel. They have continued their support to Israel, despite the huge discrepancy between the British people and the British elite and the British politicians. I have been participating in these protests every Saturday, where hundreds of thousands of people or tens of thousands of people participate in these protests, calling for an end of the participation, not complicity, the participation of the British government in the genocide in Gaza. Unfortunately, the British government does not care about its people. And it's really disappointing. I love the British people. I care a lot about the British people, and I care a lot about the voices of the British people. But unfortunately, their own leaders don't care about them. Their own leaders have been watching them protest for months, for 15 months. This protest never ended. And the government did not change its policy towards Israel, despite the UN resolution, despite the ICC and the ICJ resolution, which all say that Israel is committing war crimes against the Palestinian people and genocide. And still Keir Starmer and David Lammy, unfortunately, continued their participation in the genocide against the Palestinian people. So that statement is not surprising. He made it clear he stands with Israel. And for him, the only people who matter are the Israeli people, the hostages. The same as Donald Trump, which said, when he described the ceasefire deal, he said the hostages deal. He cares only about the Israeli hostages. They don't care about the Palestinian hostages. And this is what Vijay Prashad says, the division of humanity. It's really annoying that for these leaders, the only people who deserve life are the Israelis, and the Palestinians, no matter how much they suffer, they don't care about them, as we are numbers, unfortunately.
Yeah. Ahmed, a ceasefire is not the end of the suffering, as you say, and the struggle, the liberation struggle of people in Gaza and across Palestine by any means. As you mentioned, everyone in Gaza faces difficult days ahead, to say the least. And their struggle is part of the much larger struggle for the liberation of Palestine. What is your message today to people who are watching? How, you mentioned that people need to keep supporting Palestinians. How can people keep supporting the people of Gaza and the broader Palestinian struggle for liberation in this next phase?
Well, Gaza stands at the forefront of this war against dehumanization, against capitalism, against colonization, against occupation, against racism, because Zionism is a racist endeavor. And the Palestinians in Gaza stand at the forefront of all of this war. And this war does not relate only to the Palestinians, it relates to every single one of us. As I said now, the British government does not care about the Palestinians. They do not care about their own people, the British people. So what we are trying to do in the Gaza Strip is to open the eyes of the entire universe, the entire world, that this is not just a war between the Israelis and the Palestinians. This is a war between good and bad, between evil and goodness. And they should continue to support the Palestinian people, not only for the Palestinian people, but for themselves, because the genocide has been facilitated by the British, by the Americans, by the Western governments, by Europe and the NATO. And everyone who lives here in this region should have a say in what their government is doing in their name. If they fail Gaza, then they fail themselves. If they stop talking about Gaza, then they're failing themselves. And you need Gaza more than Gaza needs you.
Ahmed, I know that you will continue doing your work to raise awareness and to struggle for justice and accountability for this genocide and to support the people in Gaza and across Palestine. And one of the ways you're doing that is through your work with We Are Not Numbers, the project that you co-founded along with our very dear Dr. 𝐓𝐡𝐞 𝐄𝐥𝐞𝐜, who on this day especially we miss, along with so many others who should be here with us. And I just want to remind people of that. We can show the We Are Not Numbers website, which has a similar mission to the Electronic Intifada of raising and elevating the voices of people in Gaza. And you, through We Are Not Numbers, have played an extraordinary role in mentoring, publishing and supporting young writers in Gaza, many of whom write for the Electronic Intifada as well. And so I just want to remind people that this is another important project that they can get involved in, that they can share the stories, that it's a way to continue to stay connected with people in Gaza, and to thank you for all the work you do, Ahmed. And we hope and pray that Sunday comes quickly and that it brings the relief to all the people in Gaza, and that we'll have much better days ahead.
Thank you very much, Ali. And I was very happy and very pleased to see that one of our writers, Malak Hijazi, wrote this piece that you mentioned today. So our writers are now one of the most who write stories from Gaza to Electronic Intifada and to other Palestinian and Palestinian websites. And one last thing, Ali, we recently managed to get a deal with Penguin to publish our first book. Our first book for We Are Not Numbered, which is going to be an anthology of the best stories that we have published during the past 10 years since the inception of We Are Not Numbered until the genocide. So please, I would recommend that people pre-order this book, because we need to make it a bestseller book, because if it's a bestseller, then more people will know about it. So please get yourself a copy.
Ahmed, what's the title of the book?
It's called We Are Not Numbers, The Voices
of
Youth.
It's called We Are Not Numbers from Penguin. And when does it come out?
It will come out on the 25th of April.
Wow.
Okay. So
Mabruk.
Mabruk, we would love to have you back to talk about it when it comes back. And perhaps you can be joined then by some of the writers who contributed to it. It would be wonderful if we could all have that discussion together.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you,
so much,
Ahmed. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Incredible. Thank you. And I also want to plug Ahmed's fantastic podcast, Palestine Deep Dive. You can find that on Instagram and on YouTube, of course. Really incredible long form discussions.